This is Inside the Locker Room, where football isn't just a game, it's a war zone. Every take, unfiltered. Every prediction, ruthless. From Sunday battles to primetime legends, we break down the matchups, the mind games, and the moments that define champions. Fantasy, film, trash talk, all inside the locker room. So if you came for smoke, you're in the fire now.
We're back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room, episode 30. I'm actually, it's another episode in the 30s. I've kind of lost track. We've got to a lot of episodes. We kind of need to make a season 2. If you notice, we don't have Adam with us. He is out currently celebrating the Seahawks Super Bowl victory, which we will talk about in a bit. And currently, just now joining us is our other co-host, Michael Sports Talk. How are you doing, man?
What's going on with y'all? What's going on?
What's good, boys?
It's all good. We're just now starting this. And look, to the ones, make sure you stay tuned because me and Michael do have a very special guest coming on our HBCU Central podcast tonight, so you don't miss that. But I just want to get ahead. I just want to go ahead and jump into this post Super Bowl weekend because look, it felt like just last week we were just talking about really our mock drafts. We were talking about our mock drafts. We were talking about the draft and everything, and it's crazy how 4 years came around. The season went by in a blink of an eye. So, but really, this podcast we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. I want to talk about some of the Hall of Famers that didn't get selected into the Pro Bowl. We had a lot of going on with the Hall of Famers. We did have our fellow Drew Brees make the Hall of Fame. So shout out to y'all's fans and shout out to y'all's organization, Michael. I know that has a few huge having a Hall of Famer, but we will talk about that. But what I really want to talk about right now is just our post Super Bowl reactions. Ben, I want to start with you because we've been talking about this for some weeks. We said the Hawks were the best team kind of since I think the divisional round. We really been saying this going into the playoffs. They were the best team for the NFC side of things. And people have had their thoughts all season about the Patriots. But let me say this. The Seahawks defense came into play, and that's why they say defense wins championships. The defense alone basically shut the Patriots out, in my opinion. But, Ben, I'm going to let you start it off, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, it was just pure, utter domination from the Seahawks. And, the Seahawks did prove me right in, giving them the benefit. I didn't give them benefit of the doubt a couple of times this postseason. I will be honest, but I mean, the run game was just efficient all game, which led to, less pressure on Sam Darnold, which is what they needed to establish early on. And like we said, the defense just dominating. The Patriots couldn't stop the edge rush for the entire game, in my opinion. Their offensive line was clearly their huge weakness. And eventually it got to Drake May, forcing some turnovers, or actually giving up some turnovers, and, ultimately giving the ball away. We saw a little bit of life towards the end, but it just was not pretty from all cylinders almost. But I will say one thing from the Patriots side of things as well. Christian Gonzalez had a great game. And honestly, he even took away a touchdown early on from JSN. I don't know if y'all remember that, but he had 4 tackles and he was a big contributor on why the Pats were even still in it, kind of. But Michael, what were your thoughts on this Patriots, kind of outing? It was kind of disappointing, much lower scoring game than we had thought.
Yeah, watching the game, I was kind of surprised of the score. I didn't really honestly get a chance to watch the first half. I'm gonna be honest, I was knocked out asleep. I ain't gonna lie to you. But I was able to watch the second half and my dad, he called me and he told me what the game was, and my wife, she just had to check the phone. Like, oh, Seattle up 12-0. I was like, really? And it kind of surprised me. But then also, I had this thought in my mind that Seattle does have a really good defense, and and then just looking at the game, and then just looking at all the stats and everything in general. What I realized about the second half was that New England's offensive line they maker. And what I mean by that is that even though New England had a good offensive line, especially shout out to Will Campbell, Neville High School alumni, Monroe, Louisiana. You know, be able to make it to the Super Bowl in just in his rookie season. I think that's a huge accomplishment, especially for a Devil Tiger. But you know, every rookie they're gonna meet their toughest challenge, and the Super Bowl was Drake May and Will Campbell and many other Patriots. It was a tough lesson for them, and I even told MJ this. I told him, I was like, look, New England, they just got outplayed. They got out physicality. That's just what it was. Not that New England did not play up to the standard. They did, but what you have to understand is a dominant defensive line is a dominant defensive line. And if your offensive line has wrinkles and first of all, you gotta have an elite offensive line in every position. And no, I don't care if you got one, two, or three good positions. You gotta have all. You gotta have a good left tackle, good left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. You gotta have all of that. And New England just did not have all the pieces that they had on the offensive line like they thought they did. And Seattle exposed them in the Super Bowl by finding ways to outbeat them and then find ways to make Drake May feel uncomfortable. Now, you know, there's a nickname that the Seahawks are called, and they're called the Dark Side for a reason. They had a record break, and they also had a record breaking in special teams display. Like I said, the defense recorded 6 sacks, forced 3 fumbles, including a fourth quarter pick 6 by linebacker Usana. I don't know how to say his last name. For the second time, I'm not going to do that. But he effectively sealed the game. And that's just what I'm saying. It was just New England just got outplayed defensive wise. And I said coming into this game, that every team has a weakness. Dude, you know I say this all the time. I don't care what bowl game or Super Bowl it is. You can have 2 good teams, but it just takes one team to have a weakness and to lose that game, regardless of the record. And the Super Bowl proved my point. That even though New England and Seattle were both good teams, New England had more struggles than Seattle did. And but way before the Super Bowl, let's be honest, if Bo Nixon did not get hurt by with the Broncos in the AFC Championship game, that game would have probably been a different turnaround. New England probably wouldn't even been represented as the AFC champions in the Super Bowl. It could have been the Broncos in Seattle. But New England, even despite of Bo Nixon being out, New England struggled, and it came down to a clutch moment in the game that sealed them to the Super Bowl. And even before the AFC Championship game, I kind of had a feeling that New England was not going to win this game, despite of the struggles they had in the playoffs compared to Seattle. And if you see it firsthand, you just kind of have to sit here and just think about it, that New England just did not have all the pieces like they thought they did. And like I said, Seattle, it takes one team to expose another team's weakness, and Seattle, they just did that. And New England had opportunities, but they couldn't conquer it. And that's why the score came the way it was. Because New England didn't have all the pieces that Seattle had to win the Super Bowl. But they will be back.
Look, I'm gonna say this, like, in my opinion, to start the game, you would think that it was gonna be a very like defensive side of the game from both teams, because it was only 9-0 going into halftime. And I remember even like throughout this, it was just field goals. And I'm not gonna lie, at first the Patriots, they were containing the Seahawks, the Seahawks offense. Now, were the Seahawks still moving the ball? Yes, but they weren't scoring touchdowns, which was manageable for the Patriots, because a lot of people, including myself, said this: the Patriots are underdogs coming into the Super Bowl. And like Michael said before, if the Broncos had Bo Nix, we might be seeing we might have saw Seahawks versus Broncos, which I've been said back on our joint episode with MJ Amir, that I feel like that would have been a better matchup anyways, because I feel like the Patriots, they kind of had a cakewalk getting to the postseason and a cakewalk getting to the Super Bowl. But let me say this, that does not take away from what the Patriots done, because they're still a good team. They're still a good team. And they when they were faced with adversity, they have beaten teams that, were over 500. May have not been the best 500 team, but it was a team over 500. But I'm gonna say this: I kind of just think after halftime, the Seahawks and Coach McDonald just out coached the Patriots. And we saw that the Seahawks defense intensified with getting to the quarterback, getting to Drake May. I mean, they were in the backfield pretty much every drive after halftime. And then look, it took was the Seahawks offense to really open up, and it took a couple key plays to get down the field and score a touchdown. And that kind of put the games out of reach. And like Ben said, the Pacers did show life at the end when they scored that touchdown. I forgot who it was too because I was
Matt Collins.
Matt Collins. I was half asleep. I'm not even gonna lie. Thought the game was over. But when they threw it to, Matt Collins and they scored a touchdown, I'm like this. Okay, the Patriots have life, but the Patriots had to keep executing the continuous drives, and they didn't do that. They got shut out the next following drive, and So let me say this. I think the Patriots are still gonna be a top team in the AFC, next year. But I'm gonna say this: that schedule is not gonna be in the Patriots' favor due to how they finished off this season. And next season, we will really get to see, is this the Patriots team that is actually going to perform against good teams? Because we all know this, when they make the schedules, they go off of last season performance. Patriots are dead last in there, so they got an easy schedule for this year. Now let's see how it favors them when they're at the top of their division. They have a schedule compared to someone like Buffalo. That's just basically my 2 cents on that. And I think, honestly, the Seahawks, you got to give their props to them. You got to give their props to them. And I wish Adam was on here because he could very much dive into that way better than I could. But we said that at the start of the season, the NFC West was going to be a tough division. And our theory was right. And the Seahawks, they took it all the way to the championship, a Super Bowl. And shout out to DeMarcus Lawrence because he did make his wish come true. He said he was going to leave Dallas and got a ring. You can't even hate on that. And to all the Cowboys fans being salty and hating on DeMarcus Lawrence, DeMarcus Lawrence, you cannot hate on the man. It's the same scenario with DeMarcus Ware. You got to only give them their props because look, they couldn't get it done with this franchise. No bad blood or nothing, but players are in this league to win. And DeMarcus Lawrence went and got him a ring. But the next thing I want to talk about now is our Hall of Famers. Michael, I want to start with you because Drew Brees was recently announced to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I know that actually meant something to you in the city of New Orleans. So what does that just mean to you, bro?
It means a real lot to not only the city of New Orleans but to the state of Louisiana. And we called it for a while, that Drew Brees was a future Hall of Famer, but we did not anticipate it to be this soon. And I'm really, really proud of, first of all, I'm really proud of Drew and the success that he put in, day in and day out. It started in 2006. People, we were a laughing stock to the entire NFL world. We were compared to many teams. No one looked at us as a threat in the NFL, even when we got Drew, because people didn't think Drew was that person that compared to what he is now. You cannot define greatness. And I think Drew is probably one of the best accurate passers in the NFL today. That's no argument. There's just no argument that you can give me there because Drew has literally done enough to not only lift the Saints organization, but lift the Saints community all over the world, even in the state of Louisiana. Think back to Hurricane Katrina. There was no hope here. We were like water level in our homes. People's homes were either vanished or down to the ground to where there was no structured foundation. And the city of New Orleans had to pick themselves back up, and it started with the Saints to get us back to that hope that we all believed in before Hurricane Katrina even came. And it was Drew Brees, it was Sean Payton, it was Marcus Colson, it was Reggie Bush, it was Deuce McAllister. It was guys like them, and I can go on the defensive side, Jonathan Vilma, Will Smith. I can go on with this. It was guys like them that brought hope back to the city of New Orleans, brought hope back into the state of Louisiana, and Drew, I'm gonna say this respectfully. Drew built the Saints organization. He got the Saints to the first Super Bowl that many of us could not get to. Back in 2000, the Saints won their first postseason in the playoffs. That was our first. And it's crazy because we started our organization, if I remember correctly, back in 1967. We have not won a postseason since 2000 when we had Aaron Brooks. What I'm trying to say here is that you cannot define greatness. Drew Brees will be one of the greatest Saints quarterbacks to ever wear number 9. No one in the state of Louisiana or in the Saints organization has the right to wear number 9. That jersey should be retired. It should be hung on the Caesar Superdome banner at the very top right corner by the Jumbotron, because you cannot sit here and tell me that Drew will not be remembered as one of the most accurate, one of the most smart on field and off the field generation. And Ben, I know you agree with me on this because you met Drew yourself, live action. So there is no particular way to sit here and say that Drew does not deserve this Hall of Fame ballot, because he rightfully does. He passed quarterbacks like Dan Marino, John Laurinaitis. He passed records after records for passing yards, the most touchdown passes. That's not easy to do for one man and to lead one organization. So I honestly think that Drew rightfully deserved it, and I'm so glad and proud that he is on that list compared to many other legends. First of all, Larry Fitzgerald, who also is an easy pick on that Hall of Fame ballot, without a doubt. So I honestly think I was in tears. I'm literally I'm in tears because Drew, growing up as a 9-year-old kid watching Super Bowl 44, that was the best time of my life as a Saints fan, as a little boy wearing a little Saints helmet, Walmart looking Saints helmet, and just watching the Super Bowl. Like, you cannot, when you have a hero, that hero will always be remembered, especially when you have trust. I've always trusted Drew. The city of New Orleans always trusted Drew. The state of Louisiana always trusted Drew. But what's kind of sad now is that people are looking at Drew and they've forgotten about him already. And it's sad because how can you forget one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL compared to Peyton Manning, compared to Tom Brady, compared to Brett Favre? Like, I can go down the list here. Drew is, first of all, let me scratch what I was just about to say. I'm so proud of Drew, and I am so glad as a Saints fan and as a Louisianan to see Drew in the Hall of Fame ballot. To see him walk out of there, you gotta understand, when you are a kid in elementary and the teacher asks you who is your favorite player, you know who I said? Drew, hands down. And I remember as a kid, and I'll never forget, it was my 5th grade, and the teacher was asking us, who is your favorite player and why? And I literally said Drew Brees because my dream is to see him be a Hall of Famer. But I never thought in 24 years of my life that I would actually see Drew elected to the Hall of Fame and going to Canton, Ohio, with a statue of himself put on the wall of many greats. That is one of the most remarkable things as a Saints fan to see, that you're a hero quarterback that you trusted since day one on the wall of greats. And I can't get emotional because the first time I heard it, I was emotional. I don't have the tears for it, but I'm just so darn proud of the success that Drew has put out. And no disrespect to Chargers fans, but you cannot claim Drew's greatness from us. You just can't. I have nothing but respect for the Chargers organization, but y'all did not respect Drew like we did. Y'all did not trust Drew like we did. When Drew hurt his shoulder, y'all threw him away and looked at him as, oh, he's not usable anymore. And now that Drew is going to the Hall of Fame, now you want to claim bragging rights. That's not how this works. You had Drew and you barely used him. And when you did use him, it still wasn't enough to you. But then when Drew comes to New Orleans, now all of a sudden you got Chargers fans coming in that he played with San Diego Chargers first. What's your point? Y'all did not do anything to help Drew. Drew helped y'all before y'all helped him. And when Drew had to hurt himself to actually do that, but by the grace of God, his shoulder healed to where he can play again. Because Drew even said himself, when I hurt my shoulder, I didn't think I had a chance to play again. Drew, by the grace of God, God gave Drew a second chance. God knew what Drew needed to be. He brought him to New Orleans, and he changed his life. We changed his life. Because Drew even said in the interview, New Orleans loved me before I loved New Orleans. Louisiana loved me before I loved Louisiana. Louisiana will always have love for number 9. And to the day I die, Drew will always be an all-time great, especially compared to like Archie Manning and Aaron Brooks. So I'm proud of Drew. It's an obvious choice, and I hope that Dak Prescott gets a Hall of Fame ballot. I hope that whoever the Jets franchise quarterback is going to be, he is a Hall of Fame
That's
ballot.
never happening.
Look, the future speaks for itself. It just takes one guy, one right guy, to make an organization back on his feet. And if Drew can do it for the city of New Orleans, somebody can do it for the New York City Jets, and Dak Prescott can do it for the Dallas, Texas Cowboys organization. We all have a quarterback that we can trust.
I mean, look, and this Hall of Fame class, they had a lot of greats included in it. Luke Kuechly, shout out to him. That's one of the best linebackers I've seen playing in the NFC South. That's one of the best linebackers I've seen play. Shout out to him. Adam Vinatieri, longtime Patriot and Colt. Larry Fitzgerald. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting. Larry Fitzgerald, Roger Craig, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm forgetting somebody.
I think that's the whole class.
I think that is the whole class. And look, Phillip Rivers, you would have been, considered a first ballot in the couple of years, but you decided to come out of retirement and play. But hey, I mean, that was you. But Ben, did you have any thoughts about this year's Hall of Fame class before we get on to talking about this upcoming draft class?
Yeah, I think Michael said it like absolutely perfectly about Drew. That was the most obvious first ballot gets, in my opinion. And Luke Kuechly and Larry Fitz, very well deserving as well. Larry, legend. You can make a case as top 5 receiver of all time. And then solid Hall of Fame class. And it was cool to also see the legends come out for his Super Bowl. Now I don't know what Jalen Hurts was doing there, but I digress. Did y'all see that? Yo, they had Peyton Manning. They had who else? They had believe Joe Montana and a couple other legends, and then Jalen Hurts walks out. But I mean, he got a ring, so he definitely got some sort of bragging rights. But yeah, I guess for the next topic, we could sort of get into this now. I mean, guys, we're officially in the offseason, post Super Bowl. NFL draft order is set. Obviously going to be in Pittsburgh. And I came out with my second mock draft. Actually, my third mock draft. This is 3.0. And a couple of differences here. I know you're looking at the Washington pick. Why would they go tackle? They'll most likely go defense. But as far as the top 5 goes, people are kind of, solidifying their top 5. I'm seeing a lot of Arvell Reese, obviously, at number 2 to the New York Jets. And also the number 5, an interesting pick there for the New York Giants, Carnell Tate. I switched my pick for them compared to my last mock. This draft is just going to be a lot different compared to, the super heavy kind of crazy blowing class of like 2021 or 2024. I mean, this meat and potatoes of this draft is going to be the defensive lineman, and then we could go on a wide receiver run, but the draft could form differently if these wide receivers start to fall. There's multiple teams with multiple first round draft picks, like the Rams. Surprisingly, compared to last year or just years prior, we've seen the Rams give up a bunch of their picks, but this time they're really going to have to hit on these because, this is a spot that they're not normally in. And, they're definitely not going to want to be in a lower spot next year. So I have them taking Ty Simpson even earlier than what was the pick originally, number 29, because I thought about it like this. What if Ty Simpson, what if he goes at 16 to the Jets? Now, I really hope that doesn't happen. But that's a possibility there. There's just a lot of interesting players to look at in this draft class, and people have their different opinions on them. For example, the top guard in the class, I have them going number 17 to the Detroit Lions. He could easily go a lot lower than that, considering he is the best guard in the class. I have a tackle going in the top 5 to the Titans. They could easily go defense as well because, they just hired Robert Saleh, defensive-minded head coach. So a lot of things going into the offseason, considering for all these teams. And it's going to be, I think a lot of teams are going to try to replicate Seattle's, formula of success. Seattle showed us that by running the ball and having that, two-headed monster in the backfield, it, takes a lot of pressure on a QB like, say, Sam Darnold. And yeah, that defense was just built from the trenches. And then, their backfield was just crazy with Witherspoon and everybody. And, I don't even know how Nick Emenwari fell to the second round last year. I think that was a huge part of their success and why they were so dominant on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, this was my 3.0. Deuce, I know the Cowboys will pick number 12. That's going to be interesting. I even see some mocks having Caleb Downs falling to you guys. That would be sort of kind of crazy and unexpected, but it could very much well happen.
This year's draft class, look, the meat and potatoes of the draft is, the tackles and the defensive side of the ball. If I'm a team that is in need of a tackle or a defensive side of the ball, you're going for a tackle. This year is not a strong quarterback class. I only think the one quarterback that we really going to see in the first round for sure is Fernando Mendoza. Ty Simpson is one of them quarterbacks who is just like Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart. It's going to be a throw up if he's a first round pick. Do I think he's going to be a first round? Maybe if he is, it's going to be to a late team. And look, maybe it's going to be a team that is in need of a quarterback, but just not right now. That's a team I think that honestly Ty Simpson is going to go to. And it's going to be like a Will Howard type of situation where he goes to a team like the Steelers and sits behind a quarterback for like an aging quarterback. And hey, who knows? Maybe he can go to the Steelers and have a quarterback face off against what you call it?
Will Howard.
Yeah, against Will Howard for the starting quarterback job, because a lot of people, is Rodgers going to stay another year in Pittsburgh? That's going to raise a lot of questions this offseason as he gets older. So we are just going to have to see. And for the wide receiver receiver side of things, look, the Giants are, look, you would love to see a wide receiver get paired with alongside Malik Neighbors, but look, the Giants right now as a team under John Harbaugh, look, you can never go wrong drafting an O lineman. And I'm gonna say this: you want to get as much protection to protect Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo. Look, we know Cam Scatterboo is a hard runner. So look, hey, let's give him some blockers too. Create lanes for him. And look, let's create more time for Jackson Dart. We saw how drafting a Will Campbell, how it statistically and greatly improved that Patriots O line. And look what it did for Drake May. Drake May was second in MVP voting. And we're not saying it's just Will Campbell, but that's what having a good O line can do to a quarterback. One more thing. Also, I think the biggest question for Jeremiah Love is going to be, where do I land this offseason? Because Jeremiah Love is either going to be a top 5 pick or I see him being a mid first round pick. We rarely see running backs go so early. We saw Ashton Jeanty go early last year, but a lot of people in the draft are going to say don't draft a running back early when you can draft other needs, and that kind of was proven this year when Ashton Jeanty didn't put up his numbers like he did in college. And so a lot of people will say, do we wait to draft Jeremiah Love, or should we go ahead and take a pick on him? Me personally, I think he's going to either fall to a team like the Saints or the Chiefs. Honestly, I'm sorry to say this, Michael, but I think Alvin Kamara's time with the Saints is coming to an end very soon. And look, the Saints need some fresh legs. And look, y'all did just give who is it? Devin Neal y'all did just draft him, but like, hey, it wouldn't hurt to have another, 1-2 punch. We see incredible 1-2 punch. We saw the Jahmyr Gibbs and Monty 1-2 punch work for 2+ years. So hey, I mean, but honestly, if I'm Jeremiah Love, I think he's either going to the Saints or the Chiefs. But that's pretty much my 2 cents on my thoughts on the draft. I will have a mock draft coming out soon. I still been doing research on it. Just give me some time. But Michael, do you have any thoughts on this year's draft?
Yeah, and I'm gonna basically say this. I'm gonna say this real quick. As far as the Saints, eighth overall pick, it reminds me back to last year when we were in the top 10 as far as pick goes, and we ended up going with a tackle instead of Shador. And the one thing that you have to understand about the Saints organization when it comes down to draft picks is that you kind of have to just weigh your thoughts in on every single draft pick at every single position. Because one thing about Mickey Loomis is that you might say, we can need a running back, or I say we need a wide receiver, or I say we need a safety. It's more like it's really up to Mickey Loomis, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mickey Loomis doesn't go with any, not even a running back or a wide receiver. He might end up tackling the tackle spot again. I mean, who knows? But as far as the eighth overall pick with me, the key needs I think that we need dudes as far as because we're still rebuilding. This is phase 2 of rebuilding. Phase 1 was just to see where we were, how many games we could stack up, and what spot that we could get in the NFL draft. First of all, I'm glad that we got the eighth overall pick. I would have been fine with the fifth pick. Really, I'm glad we got in the top 10 in the first round as far as that goes. And I'm really excited about, what phase 2 could bring as far as secularization. Now, the key needs is wide receiver, running back, interior offensive line, and cornerback. Safety is it's kind of already up for grabs because we got Julian Blackman back for another year. We got him to a 1 year deal. His season kind of ended short due to injury, but I think this is a redemption year. This coming a year for him because make no mistake, Julian Blackman is a safety you don't want to sleep on because he is a baller. He was a baller with Baltimore, and I still believe that he can make some noise in that safety backfield. Then you got Eric Reed, who I think is going to be a what he was this year. He was a big help back there in that defensive back room. And the safety spot is really just we got our two guys. But as far as wide receiver, running back, interior offensive line, cornerback, the cornerback or safety that I think we can go with is now this is 50-50. He might be gone way before we get to him. But I got Caleb Downs out of Ohio State, a potential defensive centerpiece for defensive coordinator Brandon Staley. Wide receiver Cornell Tate, wide receiver at Ohio State, a popular fit to pair with fellow Buckeye Chris Olave. Or, like you just said, dudes, Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame, widely mocked to the Saints eventually to replace Al Kamara. Like you said, his time could be running short. And I don't disagree with that because I honestly believe that Al Kamara, I believe he still has enough juice in his tank, but the question is, how much juice does he have left? And that's the question that you have to ask, and you kind of have to go ahead and rebuild in that running back room. You got Devin Neal, you got other guys that can fit into the Saints running back room, and there are many other guys. I can't think of their names right now, but Devin Neal, Alvin Kamara, and then Jeremiah Love, who let's be honest, that'll be a nice fit in the running back room because make no mistake, Alvin Kamara time is running short, but it's just a matter of how much time do we have with him, right? And that's really the top 3 guys that I can give you as of right now. Jeremiah Love, Cornell Tate, and Caleb Downs, who it's 50-50, like I said, but if I'm killing more, which position needs help the most? And I think the position that really needs help the most is wide receiver or the defensive back room. Rick, I understand that you want to build on the running back room. I have no problem with that. But I honestly think that wide receiver and cornerback is just those 2 areas that we need to build on. And like I said, interior offensive line. But I think our offensive line is okay. But there's nothing wrong with rebuilding. So right now, this draft is really just about finding the right centerpieces and just building on the success that we had from last season. obviously Tyler Shaw is our quarterback. So now it's just time to build around him and possibly build a better season to where we can eventually be playoff contenders.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna say this: the draft is gonna be here right before you know it. The combine is actually, I believe, a few weeks away, so it'll be interesting to see how that folds out. And look, as we's going, we will start to be ramping up on the NFL draft content. You don't want to miss that. That is important. And also, we got our 1 year anniversary for Inside the Locker Room coming up soon. We will have Noah back with us, hopefully. So we will be getting that rolling. But look, I said this podcast, it has to be short because look, me and Michael, we got to get ready for this interview with I'm not even I'm not even gonna say it. You just gotta go watch the episode. But
Yeah.
look, it was a good episode. Ben, thank you for making sure you got this episode going for the day. Look, we haven't got it was some time that it's been a minute before we had an episode out. But look, next episode we will have all four of our co-hosts back on. All four of us, so you'll get to hear all four of our opinions. But like I say, as always, make sure you take care, subscribe, and look, we're at 317 subscribers on Inside the Locker Room. After we dropped our last episode, we went up like 6 subs, but then we stopped. The goal is to keep getting subs each day. So look, get us to 320 and eventually 350 because that is our goal. And for this video, I will say, look, we almost got to 100 of views for last video. I think we got to like 80 something. So let's try to get to 100 views for this episode. But as always, like I say, thank you, take care, and make sure you support and share all of our content.